The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, it's been out a week, but my new little podcast, 1000 Weddings, is now out. It's on. It's online, and you're yet to be a guest. I'm I'm building the audience before the Great Mullins turns up. But having said that, we've got some great guests on this. Well, Emily was Emily last week? No, Emily's to come. Emily Renier's to come. We've had Adam Johnson, who you know. You know Adam, don't you? I think have you met with Adam?
I don't think I've ever met him.
Oh, really nice guy from further up north in the UK. We've got John Dolan, Emily Renier, and Adrienne Catanese, who's a friend of yours actually. So it almost feels like friends of Mullins, apart from Adam.
Well, of course, Adrienne I've never met either, but I did some mentoring with her over the last couple of years. Emily I did some mentoring for as well, but maybe John Dolan, I should go to him for mentoring.
You imagine that. Well, when you do your mentoring sessions, Kev, what generally are you doing? How are you mentoring people? I know we all have our own styles, but what generally happens when somebody comes to you and says, Kev, help me out here? I need a bit of assistance with my wedding career.
Yeah, it depends really. It's very it's malleable. It depends on which stage of their career they're at. When Emily started, she was right at the beginning, so she came with me on a couple of weddings. I helped set up her website. Went through portfolio selection, all of that kind of stuff. Adrian's been a photographer for a very long time, very good one. And kind of, needed more kind of advice along the lines of storytelling and putting images together, editing, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it really just depends.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you're mentoring somebody who is essentially in a country where, documentary photography exists in America for wedding photographers, but the industry is slightly different, isn't it?
Yeah, in America, it's much more tricky for them to be authentic documentary photographers, wedding photographers. 100% agree with that. But as I say to people like Adrienne and the others that I speak to over there, there's less fish in the barrel, but they're bigger fish to shoot at. So, you've got to stand on your own 2 feet and get those fish out of the barrel.
Thank you, Kev.
The FujiCast.
For the fishing analogy. Welcome to the FishyCast. You and your questions, which you've either sent in by email to click@fujicast. What are we now, Kev? .co.uk. Thank you. Or via the Facebook page. I'm hoping that the Facebook page has been busy, Kev, because questions during the summer and late summer as we come into autumn, they're usually a bit trickier to find, aren't they?
They are. And no, it hasn't been busy.
That's not the answer I wanted. I said to Kev because usually we have our preamble, and I said to Kev, what should we talk about today? I said, well, I've got my 1000 Weddings podcast available on all podcast apps on Tuesdays. And I said, what can we talk about with you, Kev? And you said, I don't do anything these days.
I don't. Yesterday I took Rosa up to Bicester Village to spend all of her happy exam money.
Oh.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice day out in the posh shops.
What was the deal there for you, Kev? Because you might not want to share the actual money, because we had a deal with Jack as well, and it was obviously it's good to see them do well, but at the same time you're thinking, don't do too well because I'm not sure I can afford it. What?
No, it wasn't money off us. God forbid. I paid them £7 a month pocket money. That's enough. There's money off, family stuff like that. So she had a couple of £100 that she went and bought some new stuff with for school. Because they don't have to wear a uniform anymore, do they? So
no.
No, we didn't give any money to her.
Did you not? Oh, there was a financial offering here. That was what Jack seemed to work with. I think I'm going to have to come to the Mullins mentoring school of parenting.
You should. I've got it all under control. All under control.
You sound like you have.
They get a hug, and if she got into A levels, she was going to get a hug, and if she got really, really good grades, which she did, she was going to get 2 hugs.
I partly believe that's true.
It is true.
Oh dear, Kev, you thrifty person. Well, that's it. That's why Kev is able to now essentially retire and sit in his Y fronts each day watching judo and chess videos on YouTube.
That's right.
You've got it all sorted. Although actually, I think you're busier than ever with courses and stuff, aren't you? And your street stuff.
I got a few bits and pieces going on with the workshops at the moment. Yeah, but it honestly, I have to say, it is really nice not worrying about weddings. You know, we were talking off air about Gary Williams, who we spoke about his book a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And funny enough, he's got a wedding in Malmesbury in a couple of weeks, and he doesn't drive. Well, you know, he lives in central London, so he gets tubes everywhere. So he was like, oh, how can I get up there? I was like, well, get yourself a train to Chippenham. I'll come and pick you up. I'll take you to the church. I'll wait outside. I'll take you to the reception. I'll come back at the end of the reception. I'll take you back to Chippenham station. And so I've become a wedding photographer driver.
No, you've become a wedding chauffeur.
Yeah, photographer chauffeur.
Chauffeur. Kev,
I'm really looking forward to that, because it'll be like the first time ever I've actually gone to a wedding without the anxiety and nerves and am I in the right place? Have I got the right date? Will I do okay? Will the people be nice? Do I look okay? I'll just be able to go in my shorts and not give a shit. Apart from obviously getting Gary to where he needs to be. Yeah, I was
going to say he needs to be where he needs to be. Don't just drop him off at any St Mary's church. I suppose, I never ever believed that you still felt anxiety when you were photographing weddings, but it seems to be actually, and this is one of the questions I have asked in the new podcast, it is about anxiety, and it's incredible the amount of photographers who still have a sort of an anxious edge when they go to a wedding, despite having done it for many years, as you did.
Always anxious, always absolutely 100% anxious the night before, anxious in the morning. The anxiety would wane once I got into like bridal prep or whatever, but 100%. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I gave it up. I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me anymore. You know, I don't want to be anxious. You know, people who get anxious at my stage of life drop down dead. I've stopped. I've pushed the anxiousness out. Well, anxiousness for that out of my life.
That way. Which is why white Y fronts and YouTube has taken over. Are you watching a lot of your YouTube channels now, Kev? Which is nice. Anyway, look, before we start, thank you to pick-time, pick-time.com for being our sponsor on this show. We both use them, myself and Kev, for showing our wares on the web. It's a way of having it's an online showroom for your pictures. It's also a gallery, of course. That's what I mainly use it for, gallery for showing pictures. But the best thing about PicTime, I think, it's by far the best platform I've found anyway for really showing off a wedding once you've photographed it. I love the way that you can choose to hero images, so you can present the images. It's a bit like sort of, I suppose in many respects, it's a bit like curating your own exhibition. You can make pictures larger that you think are more important and lead people through the wedding. And I love the way that PicTime does that. You love it for the way that you can sell. You've sorted that over the years, haven't you? I don't think you've designed an album for 5-6 years.
Oh no, longer than that. But I mean, there's that. But also, you know, what I really like about it, I was talking to somebody on the FujiCast Facebook group about it, is, you know, it's basically an online archive as well. You know, it's a backup system. So I transferred all of my weddings on there. So, you know, I've got everything there. You know, in case of emergency, in case of some kind of catastrophic failure in the studio and all that kind of stuff, I know that they're there. But also as a kind of reminders to the clients, you can just ping them an email every now and again and just say, you know, whatever, the automations are great. You can send anniversary reminders. You can send them just to the groom and just say, hey, mister, your partner is, fancy buying them a print or buying them an album or whatever. It's cool. And I was talking also on the Facebook group to somebody who was struggling with Squarespace in terms of selling gallery prints, which you can do through Squarespace. It's a bit of a fangled thing, you know, you've got to kind of drop ship and all that. So I was like, well, why don't you just do the art gallery in PicTime? Yeah. Perfect. It's all handled. Everything is great.
I noticed.
So there we go.
I noticed actually, while we were talking about Gary Williams, he does that. I think he uses. Does he use PicTime through his site? I think he does. I'm
not 100%
selling
sure.
Art stuff. I might, of course, be saying the wrong thing here, but go to pick-time.com. And if you put Fujicast in the box when you come to check out, you get 1 month for free. Thank you very much. Right, questions. Kev, I know on the Patreon pop-up, we were getting the crew to get serious about getting these questions in. One of the things is you think, oh, it's already been asked. Doesn't matter. We always have a new audience ready to learn. So even if you think a question's been asked, send it in. Your questions are, I haven't said this for a long time, Kev, the lifeblood of the show.
Did you just refer to our patrons as the crew?
I did. Is that wrong? Is that a bit...
You'll start saying things like, smash that wedding on the weekend. Gonna blast through this editing this week.
I thought for a minute you were going to say. I thought for a minute you were going to say I sound a bit 80s, but
yeah. By the way, you too can become a patron and be a member of the crew, if you so wish. Go to Patreon for the price of a coffee a month. Yes. So we need more questions, and yes, absolutely, 100%. Don't ever think, well, this is a silly question, or I wonder if they've been asked this before. Yeah. Because if it's a silly question, we won't read it out, and me and Neale will talk about it offline and say, what a silly question. But we won't, honestly, we don't do that. But there is no such thing as silly questions, and as Neale just rightly said, questions that we've answered previously are still fair game, because there are lots of people that won't have heard that.
Peter McKinnon would say crew, wouldn't he? He'd probably say crew. I know he says squad, isn't it? Something squad.
I wonder what, squad. I wonder what his, fast forward 20 years.
Yeah.
Peter McKinnon, I'm sure he'd still be far trendier than we are. But I wonder what his language and his look will be then. I do wish he'd wash his hair more.
I think he does. I think he cuts it every so often, about every 2 years, I think. But he does look cool, isn't he? He's always going to look cool. I think it's the fact that...
he looks like Bruce from The Smoking Dog in Malmesbury.
Well, you've never seen McKinnon and Bruce from The Smoking Dog in the same room at the same time. They could be the same person, Kev. You never know. Right, questions.
This is from Stephen Jack, and he says, Hi, Kev. Hi, Neale. I have the task of transferring some old slides from my parents' days into digital. Please, can you give suggestions on how best to do this? I've tried a few apps, but would like the pictures to be stored on a hard drive and to be filed more efficiently. Thanks, Stephen.
Have you ever done that?
Something we have mentioned before.
We have, but I can't remember the way you said. We were talking the other day about scanning, weren't we? But we were talking prints with that, weren't we?
Well, this is the same thing, isn't it? Transferring some old slides. I've got hundreds of old slides also from various locations, and I have an Epson slide scanner. It's a scanner, but it has a compartment to put slides in. I'll tell you, bear with me, caller. It is Epson V600 photo, and I think it's excellent. It's brilliant for scanning, general scanning, flatbed scanning, but it comes with this little tool that you can pop in that allows you to put slides in there. Now, I'm assuming these slides are already, in their little plastic cases and stuff, rather than a string of negatives, right? So you're saying slides, so they've already been developed as slides. And it's brilliant, and you just scan it in. It does have its own software, but I prefer to use Photoshop, because you just, once you've connected the printer to your computer, it appears as what's known as a Twain device, TWAIN, and you can just do file import from Twain device, and it will find the scanner, and it will do all of its hunky-dory, jiggery-pokery. And thereafter, you would need to save, and if you want to edit them, you can edit them, or you can just save them to Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever you wish to put your online storage. Now, the one thing to be careful of, if you do want to be using online storage for all of these things, if there is a lot of them, the TIFF files that Photoshop will create will be very, very big, depending on the DPI setting you choose. But you can either, to preserve the quality, keep the TIFF files, but they will be big, circa over 100 megabytes each, or you could then just save it as JPEGs from within Photoshop. That'll keep them down a bit, and assuming you're keeping the actual original slides as well, then that's your kind of return to RAW format, isn't it? That's the way I would do it. You can also be very clever and use a camera in a controlled lighting environment. Use a camera. Yeah. Photographed directly down onto the slide. Do it that way. There's plenty of YouTube videos showing people how to do that, and it's quite impressive. The V600 printer came with a little kit, like dust brush and gloves and all kinds of stuff. It's very cool.
What DPI do you set, Kev?
Well, I go for 1200,
Right.
which is quite high, but it does retain the details. The default, if you use most defaults, will come in at 300 DPI, which will be slightly soft, I think. So I go for 1200. Makes it bigger, makes it more malleable. There we go. I've done it 3 times now. For editing, also, if you wish to edit.
300 DPI is the output standard really for when we're doing our digital files for printing, though, isn't it? That's what I use.
Yeah, I mean, for digital, everything would get downgraded to 300 DPI or 240 technically for uploading to websites or online anyway. But for editing, restoring, that kind of stuff, you want the higher DPI because it'll give you more latitude to edit from.
And here's a question we haven't had before, but I'll throw it in. Why, Kev, would you downscale to 240 DPI and not just go all the way to 72 DPI for online, that is?
Okay, so think of it this way. In your cameras, you have JPEG settings that are fine and medium. So think of it that way. Medium would be 72. That's not how it works in the camera, but ultimately it's the quality of the data, the detail that's inside that JPEG. 72 DPI would be absolutely fine for, I don't know, like corner images, flourishes, banner adverts, that kind of stuff. But anything that's, you're trying to show off a photograph, I would go for online at 240. I usually go 300, but 240 is your target.
Slides.
That was impressive. I was impressed with my answer. That sounds like I knew what I was talking about.
No, I know. I was thinking.
Made it all up.
Yeah, no. I always believe every word you say, Kev. The slide thing always reminds me that's how our Thomas, our youngest, found out that I'd been married before. It was all through a box of slides. There's a little box in our bedroom, one of those blanket boxes, lovely old blanket box. I've had it years. This blanket box, Kev, used to be on a Victorian ship. Anyway, aside from that, I put all old stuff in there, books and all stuff from radio days and all that sort of stuff all goes in there. And I think he quite likes it because it's like a little, what's in here? Like trinkets of all sorts of stuff. And he found a little yellow container, you know what you put the slides in? It was the Kodak one, a yellow Kodak container of the slides. And he said, "What's this, Daddy?" And I said, "Well, that's slides." I completely forgot what was on the slides. And he said, "Well," and he held them up against the light, and I said, "Oh no, I've got," and I went like this, and I looked in the blanket box, and I said, "Here's one of those little eye thing. If you put the slides in the eye viewer and hold it up to the light, you'll see them much bigger and much. You'll be able to see what's on the slides." He said, "Okay." So he set about looking through the slides. I came back into the room, and he said, "Who's this woman you're with?" And it was Debbie Ann, my first wife, as we affectionately refer to each other because we know each other still. She says my practice husband, and I say my practice wife, rehearsal wife and rehearsal husband. We both use that, and that was the way. I said, "Well, we should probably have a little chat about that." I was thinking about that with slides. Anyway, right. Benjamin Turner. Benjamin Tunner. Sorry, Tunner. Oh, Sam used to go out with somebody who was Tunner. Was he Benjamin Tunner? I don't know. You asked some more questions, so here's a few to keep you going, lads. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I quite like ones like this because sometimes they take up almost the whole show. So as long as you've written good questions, here we go. What are the best practices for capturing candids when you're photographing a social event without making people feel uncomfortable? So we'll go one at a time here, Kev. I'd say just hide yourself in a bush or something and poke your lens out, ninja style.
Yes, there's that. Sorry, I'm concentrating. By the way, just so you're aware that the ballot is now open for the Arsenal v Southampton game. If you're a Red member, I think you did, didn't you? Yeah.
I didn't think of going for any ballots to start with, Kev, because I thought they'd be so difficult to get at the start of the season.
Well, yeah, we got rejected for the Leicester game, but we got a few last year, or a couple, so it's always worth doing it. You just enter the ballot, and then if you don't get in, they don't charge you. If you do, they do. Yeah. Anyway, what was the question?
The question was best practices for capturing candidates at social events. without making people feel uncomfortable.
Okay, right. So what I was about to say was that it depends, right? So candid, in the sense of the term candid, just means candid is an adjective. It's either candid or it's not, i.e. you have no interference with it in any way, shape or form, apart from moving yourself as the photographer. But there's a difference between candid and, let's say, photojournalistic or documentary, because candid can just be a simple candid snapshot of somebody smiling, a headshot. But photojournalism or reportage photography at an event or whatever will be more about telling a story, and that can just be in one frame or multiple frames. But my personal opinion is that the wider the scene, the more storytelling it can hold within the confines of what you're trying to photograph. So yeah, I mean, if you just want candid headshots, which is absolutely fine, a lot of people, that's all they want, then yeah, you can get a longer lens, you can sit back and kind of fire them off from a distance. Be aware that people will walk into the frame and you'll want to smash them over the head with the camera. But otherwise, getting a bit closer, be like if it's a commercial event, I don't know, it might be a black tie affair or a party or something like that, then be one of them, get in close, take a wider lens, 18mm for example, and just kind of blend in, merge, mix, take pictures, move on, merge, mix, take pictures, move on, merge, mix, take pictures, move on.
What Ben doesn't say is whether it is like a commercial event, but assuming it is, I think one thing you could consider, Ben, is don't hide from making photographs. You look at the great photojournalists across the years. It was obvious they were making pictures, taking pictures, but they weren't necessarily hiding the fact. You don't need to act like a ninja. You can be a photographer. And I think in some respects, people trust you more when you're honest up front and, we'll use the A word, being authentic about being a photographer. I think you get more respect that way as well. Certainly at weddings, I've found that, Kev.
Yeah, 100%. And also, these days with modern cameras and stuff, people tend to think that they can just shoot thousands and thousands of frames and, it'll all work out. And it might, but I think that's a crutch for a lot of people. So, slow down, use your eyes, enjoy the event, see, watch, wait, see what's happening, take pictures of the relevant things. Think of yourself as a photojournalist rather than somebody who's there who's just got to get as many shots as possible. Yeah. I think that's a real blight on the way that people work these days, personally. I can say that now. I don't shoot weddings.
Well, on that note, actually, Adam Johnson made I think a really important observation about shooting weddings when I was talking with him, and that was because one of the questions I asked him was, what do you do when it gets quiet? What's your take on the cocktail hour? The coffee drinking time, as you and I used to call it when we'd message each other. Is it cocktail hour where you are, Kev? Yeah, nothing's going on. He said, still make pictures, because every single person there, so this is more about weddings than other social events, but every single person there is loved, hopefully, by the couple that have commissioned you to shoot their wedding. So even if it's a reasonably what you might think of as a non-interesting picture, is still possibly going to be very important for them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's another one here. So this is question number 2. So it's another candid one here. How do you manage privacy? This is a good one, Kev, because this is right up your street in terms of street photography. How do you manage privacy concerns when sharing candid photography on social media? Now, you do share your street work. Does it ever cross your mind that some people might say, I don't want my picture there?
Well, no, but also we still don't know. I mean, he mentioned a candid event. What does that mean? If it's a family party, or that he's not been paid for, or is it a commissioned thing? It doesn't sound like it's a wedding in my mind.
No,
and it doesn't sound like it's a street photography exercise either.
What if it was street though? What if it was street? Let's consider that.
If it's street, yeah, then as long as you're legally in the place where you're allowed to take pictures and share, then I have no problems doing it, none at all. But some people do, and that's absolutely fine. Some people are more conscious of it and don't want to do it. We've talked about this before. I don't particularly enjoy the street photography that is benign, is like absent of any kind of story, personality. It's just effectively silhouettes of people walking through shades of light, etc. And they're beautiful, don't get me wrong. And some people, make a lot of money out of that kind of work. They specialize in it. But, some people have moved towards that because they're uncomfortable about taking pictures of strangers on the streets. To them, I would say, well, it's history. It's, if you don't take pictures of people on the street, who is, and how will we know what it was like in the future? And of course, you have to have ethical boundaries. And I would never take a picture of anybody doing something I would not be happy being photographed doing myself.
Right. You don't mind being photographed on the street, do you? Doesn't bother you? No.
It wouldn't bother me. I don't know if I have been. I'm sure I have been. But no, it would not bother me at all. Why not? Because I'm part of that moment in time. And that moment in time is now available for others in the future to see, show how rotund I am and short.
Oh, Kev.
The clothes I'm wearing. Or not in some cases.
I don't think I want to know about that. Actually, that probably leads on to his third question. I think we may have covered it in that. What are some ethical considerations when photographing people in public spaces, i.e. when you're going out in the street, I suppose? And the ethics are all according to what country you live in. As we've had this conversation where in parts of Europe now, you're not allowed to make pictures of people without their explicit permission, certainly not on the street. Austria is one we often talk about. There's other countries as well. I think it's trickier in France, but you talk to people that photograph street in France and they'll say, I just do it anyway. But certainly in some countries like Austria, you'll get the eye, you'll get the side eye view. They know that, there's some countries that say people know their rights to that extent. But
yeah, absolutely. And it's as much as I'm aghast at these countries that bring in these rules, you should abide by them. And so, for example, in France, you can photograph in France, but it's illegal to publish anything with somebody else's features in it without their express permission. And so there's a difference there. But luckily, in the UK and in the United States and a vast majority of places, actually, you still have that right. Of course, there's very grey areas about what constitutes a public place and where are you and all of that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of caveats to it.
It's great, Ben. How can you use social photography to? This is right up your street, Kev. How can you use social photography to build a personal brand? I've got this feeling that Ben's moving into street photography with these questions, or enhance your professional portfolio. Ooh, very serious now. I like the way when we talk about brand, and I think it was always part of your brand, Kev, that you mix up online, or you add to the mix rather, your personal work, your street work, with your wedding work, and so your overall brand was I'm Kev, I'm a photographer. I always thought that you did that, where some people haven't managed to do that so well.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really had an issue with that. But remember, a brand is a psychological thing, really. It's not just about, for example, I shot a lot of black and white stuff, so I post a lot of black and white stuff. But the brand, my brand, for example, is candid and emotion. It's not about whether they are pictures of street people, or street photography pictures, I should say, or personal pictures or wedding pictures, etc. The brand itself, the brand that I tried to build, was about storytelling, mostly monochromatic emotion pictures. That's the brand. So whether it's a monochromatic, emotion-driven storytelling picture of my dog, or whether it's a amazing picture at a wedding, actually they both support the brand. So try not to confuse brand with style, is what I'm saying. Yeah. Your style is different to your brand, but can be part of the brand. A brand is it's the overall perception and identity of an entity, I guess, or company or product or person, whatever. We talked again, I think, we haven't mentioned it in a long time, so it might be a good reminder, the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding by Al Rice. published in like the 70s. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant book, still very relevant today. Don't confuse brand with style. Too many people do that and think my brand is this. I'm a street photographer that does high contrast color. It's part of your brand, but it's not your brand. All right. Brand is something much more ethereal than that. But style, if we're talking about style in this context, then yes, it makes sense to have a defined style. If we think about Mr. Whisper, for example, his Instagram is full of images that are very stylized, very similar, very coherent, and very beautiful. And, he's got a style that fits his client base. That's what they come to him for. And so that's what he promotes. I literally, my Instagram, and actually always has been a place for, yes, getting bookings, but also a place for personal, kind of, what do you call it? Sketchbooks? No, scrapbooks.
Oh, the sketchbook images, as I call them for my
Yeah,
stuff.
you call them sketchbooks. Yeah. So, and that's it. I'm never really overly worried about that stuff, but then perhaps that's because I got into the business earlier and was lucky enough not to have to rely entirely on that. But think of style as something different to brand, and buy that Al Rice book.
There's another book you should buy as well, by Phil Knight. Have you ever read Shoe Dog?
About Nike.
Yeah. Well, Phil Knight, who started the Nike brand. Shoe Dog, I read it on holiday. Sam read it and said, you have to read this. It's not a book about branding, but there's a lot of understanding in there about building a brand through the mistakes that Phil Knight made. It's a really, really good book. It's a not put-a-downable book. Shoe Dog, the memoir of the creator of Nike. But I'm always interested in the way that you mixed up your Instagram feed with pictures from different scenarios. I never did that, and it's never too late. Of course, you can start to do that, and don't feel that you can't sometimes put stuff in there that isn't exactly completely on brand.
And it depends on what you want Instagram to do for you. If you're using it purely to sell wedding bookings, for example, in your case, then it makes sense to go down that route, but. Like I said, that's why I said, if I was lucky enough to kind of be in the business before that was even a thing. And so, it's very different, I think, when you've got a backbone of a business that, offers referrals and, you've got kind of relationships with vendors and things like that. But, you know what? It's up to you, i.e. the royal you, what you do with your Instagram and stuff. Don't think you have to do what everybody else is doing. And the vast majority use Instagram wrong. There you go. I'll say that. I put my cowboy boots on and stand on Steve Earle's coffee table and shout it out loud.
Most all doing it wrong.
Photographers use Instagram incorrectly.
Okay. I think you have to expand on that now, Kev.
Oh, well, again, we've talked about this loads, haven't we? Too many hashtags, ... to hide the hashtags, not interacting with people, scheduling posts because they think they have to. All of these things are lights to the algorithm that just go, all right, well, maybe if you can't be asked to do it properly, we won't be asked to rank you properly.
There's a thought
there's a lot more to it than that, of course.
The verified thing has changed a lot now, hasn't it? There's different levels of being verified now, different amounts of. And now I'm not a verified account, and I've always stayed clear of being a verified account. But there are now photographers that say it's probably the only way if you really want to play with Instagram and they want to play with you, of being part of the club.
Wrong.
Why? Why is that wrong?
Because it's anti-competitive for a start, so they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to say if you are verified, you will be given preferential treatment because it's anti-competitive.
Why is that different then to? Why? Hang on.
Google.
Hang on. I'm going to rewind you. Why?
That Google, the same reason that if you have run Google ads, people think that it will move your organic rankings up because you're paying Google. And it's anti-competitive.
Yeah. But what about boosting? Isn't boosting a post?
You don't need to be verified to boost a post.
But I know. But you're paying to play there. So what's the difference between?
No. You're paying to advertise on their platform. That's a very different thing.
No, that's true.
So the only benefit that I can see for the verified stuff at the moment, unless you rightly need the verification tag, i.e., you're a celebrity, or your account gets basically, if you're a celebrity, if you're rich and famous, then yes, because that does protect your intellectual property, and you are the person that needs protecting.
I'd like to look into this more, actually, Kev, because there's quite a few sites like Buffer and ShipStation that suggest paying for verification can help boost your visibility in search results, recommendations, and explore pages. But for the moment, you're saying it gives you a security gateway, and that's the only advantage as far as you can see it at the moment.
It's true that you've got more chance, or an easier route, because you have access to the help desk, of getting your account back if it gets hacked.
Right.
That's it. Otherwise, I just see it as a vanity thing. If it's a fair thing to have your verified account if you're worried about being hacked. But to that, I would just say, switch on to two-factor authentication and use a really, 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 really strong password created by a password software tool. And you shouldn't really ever be hacked, but it does happen, and being verified gives you access to the help desk quicker than non-verified. I'm not verified. I get a lot of traffic on my Instagram, and I don't even post that often. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I've never really tried to sidestep the algorithm. I've used relevant hashtags and few of them. I've never done that ... nonsense. I've never put the hashtags in the first comment. The people who do that, they must think, we know how to stop Instagram seeing these hashtags and these things. I'm like, geez, the people that write this algorithm are far more intelligent than all of us put together.
Don't be rude.
Not you, Donald, no.
And they'll be using AI and all sorts of stuff now. Do you think by doing ... it's going to work?
What do you mean ... Oh, I see what you mean, the vertical dot, so that you push all your hashtags to the bottom.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay. Well, you might as well just be honest about hashtags.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so, if you imagine the algorithm is a real human, which is what I always tell people to think of it as, and they come to a post and they see it, and this algorithmic human is like, he's trying to hide the hashtags. Get rid of him.
This has been like the Benjamin Tanner Show.
Who's he?
Well, remember the person that asks all these questions, Kev?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, love thy audience.
I've just realised I've booked those tickets. I've entered the ballot for the Arsenal game for Southampton, and I'm in Dublin.
Well, it's all right. If you win it, I'll have them.
Yeah, you can go.
Are we allowed to push them across if I want a ballot and say Jack couldn't go? I could say, Kev, I've got 2 tickets. You and I are going.
Yes, you can. If they're members, if they're red members, you can just send it to the phone.
Well, there we go then. So Ben's last question here. Have you ever used a smartphone for street photography instead of your camera? I have many times. I wouldn't call myself a street photographer. I quite like the idea, by the way. I think of myself as more of an urban photographer. I like the urban landscape. I've never really called myself or labelled myself a street photographer. You have, and you teach street. Have you ever used not your iPhone, because I know you don't like that flavour, but have you ever used your smartphone instead?
I have taken quite often on the tube and things like that, pictures of interesting people opposite me, sat down, all of that kind of stuff. So and there are amazing photographers out there using mobile phones for street photography, and why not? If we go back to that question earlier that was about, do you feel safe taking pictures on the streets? Millions of people every single second of the day are using their phones to take street pictures, unbeknownst to them. But put a camera in their hands and they suddenly think, I don't know if I should be doing this. I suggest this sometimes to people. It's a good way of beating the fear, is use your phone first.
Yes.
Use your phone, just don't hold it up vertically. Because if you hold it up vertically in front of me, I'll walk over and I'll turn it around.
They might be making a picture of themselves, Kev. Don't flatter yourself. It wasn't of you in the first place. I'll tell you what would be good, although this seems a bit creepy, actually. No, I think this might appear on the creepy list, but if you were using it for proper purposes and I don't know, urban street photography, it could be quite fun to have a camera that has a 45-degree tilted lens so that it wasn't obvious you were making pictures. But I think that could appear in the creepy scale, actually, Kev. So I'm going to rewind.
Well, not really, because the whole point of being candid and trying to get those stories is often you are trying to not look like you're taking pictures because it affects the scene in front of you. So there is a nefarious element to some street photography, I agree. But once again, if you're using a phone with a 45-degree angle or whatever that technology, as you mentioned, and you're taking pictures of things that you would not mind being in those photos yourself, then I don't think there's anything nefarious about that.
Can you imagine a company trying to market that, though? We've got a camera where you can take pictures of people without them knowing.
You can buy Ray-Ban glasses with a camera in the glasses.
I once worked with a videographer that did that, and he walked around all day with his glasses on. When we sat down, he wasn't the easiest chap in the world. I'm saying with a charitable edge. And when we sat down for a meal later on in the day together, I said, "Do you mind taking your glasses off?" And because he didn't need sunglasses on inside, didn't need his shades on, and it was because he was recording. I thought, oh, that was creepy, Kev. That was creepy.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not, depending on what you're photographing. But yes, I mean, it gives you things like that. Sunglasses give you an opportunity to get into places that you absolutely wouldn't with, or not places, but positions, whatever, that you absolutely wouldn't be able to with a camera or a smartphone. But yeah, I mean, that does take it up another notch, doesn't it? I think.
When I went to see Miami play the soccer, David Beckham's soccer squad, the camera I took in was the X100V. But when we had the bag check, the guy said to me, "I think you'll just about get in with this camera." It's quite interesting. Had it had a protruding lens or looked like I might be able to professionally shoot with it, he might well have said, "I'm sorry, you can't take this in." Yeah. Right. I think we've got time for one more, Kev. It'd love to be a QQ from the Facebook. Can you do that?
Yeah, okay, QQ. I've got one teed up, but it's not very QQ-ish. So, Thomas James Grant, your question will come another time. Hello, Neale. Hello, Kevin. Connor Gowes, Gouws says, later on in the year, I will be attending a cousin's wedding. I'm wanting to take my camera as a guest, in brackets, but I'm unsure how to navigate this with there being a hired photographer. Wow. Should I refrain from bringing my camera?
No. I think again, be honest about making photographs. Don't do that thing where you're standing over the photographer's shoulder, which I know you wouldn't do. And try not to be there every single moment you can be to grab because I think that's what upsets wedding photographers when somebody's omnipresent with their camera for the entire day, and you're thinking, no, have a moment off. So use it, but don't overuse it. Yeah,
I agree. I totally agree with you, 100%. And I'm trying to think back. I can only vaguely remember one wedding where I had an issue with one other person. And it was they were annoying, but I never really allowed it to annoy me. They actually stood in front of me while the bride and groom walked up the aisle. And so, it was, but only once though in 800 weddings. You've done more than me. How many times can you remember that kind of Uncle Bob really being a problem?
Not really. Actually, the guy I was telling you about with the glasses, the videographer, he's the picture that I've got where during the kiss, when at the end of the ceremony, the vicar says, "You may now kiss your each other, bride, groom," whatever he says. He walked right in front of the shot at that particular moment. He just walked across to go and collect one of his tripods and cameras. That's the most annoyed I've ever been. But there we go. Yeah. Right, that's it for this week. Get your questions in, yes, please, because Ben really did the job there. But we need your questions. 2 ways to send them in: either via click@fujicast.co.uk, the email address click@fujicast.co.uk, or through the Facebook group. How do you do it, Kev?
Go to Facebook. That is facebook.com. Search for Fujicast, or one word. Join the group, and add to the thread at the top, the pin thread that says questions for the show 2024.
Perfect. Right, well, we shall see you in a couple of weeks. For those that are our Patreons, thank you very much. We'll catch you in the pop-up next week. See you soon, Kev. Bye!
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.